It's time for Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott, episode 139. This week, the rebirth of Windows Mobile, PC sales soar, and Google bitch slaps China. Windows Weekly is next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott, episode 139 for January 15th, 2010. Big Trouble in Little Paul. Windows Weekly is brought to you by Audible.com. To download a free audiobook of your choice, visit audible.com/windows and follow Audible on Twitter at audible_com. And by GoToMeeting. Do more and travel less with GoToMeeting. Make your next meeting a GoToMeeting instead. For your free 30-day trial, visit gotomeeting.com/twit. And by Carbonite, the leader in online backup. Back up your PC or Mac off-site securely and automatically. For a free trial offer plus 2 free months with purchase, go to carbonite.com, offer code TWIT. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show that opens a window to the world of Microsoft. Here he is, our window watcher, Mr. Paul Thurrott, from his lair somewhere in eastern United States. We won't be too specific because we don't want people to gather outside his door clamoring for his attention. Hello, Mr. T.
Yellow.
Yellow.
How you doing?
You sound a little like Brian Livingston there. Yellow.
Wow. That's always the effect I'm going for.
So you recovered from CES?
You know, sort of. It's taken a surprisingly long time. It didn't help that I took a red-eye flight home like a jerk. But,
ooh, it's bad enough that you're there in Vegas for 5 days, not sleeping well no matter what.
Right.
Working hard, walking far, and then to add a red-eye. You're a bold man, Mr. T.
You know what I figured out, too, was that I think it was like Friday night. Friday night was the Atomic Museum.
That was a fun party.
Event,
it was the
what
happens in Vegas goes on Twitter or something like that party.
Yeah, right. Well, I walked for a solid hour to get to this place. And, of course, this was on the heels of, pardon the pun, 2 straight days of walking.
Wait a minute.
So,
you walked to the Atomic Museum?
Well, here's why. It was beautiful out.
Yeah, it was. We had great weather in Vegas. Yeah.
Hot or whatever.
Yeah.
But the invitation I had said, near the Bellagio, 1 block off of the Strip. So I was staying next to the Bellagio.
Near as the cab flies, I think.
How hard could 1 block be?
Right.
Now, I also cannot read a map. And because I have a first-generation iPhone 3GS that doesn't have the turn-by-turn navigation, I misread the direction on the street. So I was actually just about to cross over the highway on the other side of the Strip when I realized I'm getting further away from my destination.
Yes.
So I need to turn around. But I actually was walking for an hour.
For 1 block an hour is not a good rate.
Yeah, it was further than a block, many blocks. Yeah. It was okay, but it was just a long trip. So, by the time Saturday rolled around, actually, I extended my hotel room stay because I was originally checking out Saturday morning, and then would have had to have dealt with my bags, for 12 hours. Right. But I was not bright-eyed and bushy-tailed when I got home. Let's put it that way.
That was a fun party. Did you see? You saw Brent Spiner?
I did.
Dater, Commander Dater.
Dater.
I call him Dater so that you Massachusettsans will recognize it. And
sure.
and of course Geordie LaForger. Yeah.
Who curiously does not wear those glasses in real life.
LeVar Burton. Although he had the good grace, I thought it was quite funny when we interviewed him to turn his headphones like this, so he actually looked like Geordie LaForge. It was funny.
He must hate his life sometimes.
I asked both of them, and they were very candid, and they said, no, we're very grateful. Now, remember that LeVar Burton won an Emmy for Kunta Kinte and Roots, at the time the most watched miniseries of all time, and he was in Reading Rainbow for like 47 years, and is beloved among people who grew up watching that show. So he has a career. And Brent Spiner is a funny guy, but both of them said, and then it reminded me, people come up to me all the time and say, gee, I really miss you from the screensavers. I wish you were still on TV. I get that all the time.
Too. I'm getting tired of this. This stuff we're doing now.
But I never, ever, never do I feel like, oh, I'm typecast as Leo Laporte or anything like that. Of course, I was playing myself.
You're a character of sorts.
I was a character on the screensavers, that's for sure. And no, but it's you're always grateful that people remember you. So and that's what they said. So I know I thought I had the same reaction. Like, well, remember when Shatner, does that Saturday Night Live bit where he's at the Trekkie convention and he says, "Get a life, you people." I asked him specifically about that, and they said, "No." And they kind of mocked. There's one of their I won't say the name, but one of the castmates from the Next Generation who doesn't want to be remembered for his participation.
Awesome.
They said, well, come on. That's, that's it. That's what you did. You did something great, something remembered. What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
And, even Shatner, who can forget his portrayal as the buffoonish lawyer in Boston Legal? I mean, that's where I really remember him.
Really? Because I'm kind of more of a TJ Hooker.
Oh, well, there you go, too. Nobody carried a utility belt better than Shatner.
Oh, and let's not forget Adrian Zmed.
Let's forget Adrian Zmed, can we please? Shoot, I had done so well. Saying, who?
Yeah.
I'd forgotten.
And the girl who was not Heather Locklear, but was like Heather Locklear, I think.
Heather, yeah, they said. What they say is, let's get Heather Locklear. She's not available.
Was it Heather? Was it her? Was she on that?
I don't remember.
I don't remember. If it wasn't her, it was someone who looked just like her. She
was the hooker in TJ Hooker?
Wow. No, it wasn't that kind of show.
It was Heather Locklear.
It was, okay.
No wonder it looks so much like her. It's hard to tell with the plastic surgery. It's really hard to tell sometimes.
Yeah. It was the 80s. Everyone had feathered hair then, so.
That's right. Basically all the men and women look the same.
By the way, Adrian Zmed.
Who looks just like Poncherelli.
Yeah.
And
then that other guy.
And the other guy. Red shirt guy.
If there was an episode of TJ Hooker where he didn't end up on the roof of a car, I don't want to see it. Right? Because that's my enduring memory of the show is him, holding on to the hood.
Always.
As trains are on a corner.
As they drove away.
Yeah. It's never happened to me.
I think he'd learn that, if you hop on a car, that there's somebody still driving around.
Yeah.
Probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
Might be better to avoid that situation.
And by the way, for whatever it's worth, the Star Trek movie with the Borg, right?
Yeah.
Not Borg. A Shatner movie, but actually a Next Generation movie.
Yeah.
A fantastic movie.
See?
Right?
And they were in that. And actually, I had forgotten when I was talking to Brent Spiner that he was also in Star Trek. He was like the doctor, like he had that small role in the new Star Trek movie. Right?
I'm having trouble remembering. I remember he was in Independence Day as the crazy scientist.
Maybe that's what it was.
No, you're probably right. I'm just trying to remember.
I think he's made a career, actually, playing crazy scientists.
Sure. One might suspect.
He was in Star Trek First Contact.
Well, yeah, sure. But that was the movie with both casts, as I recall.
Very confusing. For someone like me.
Oh, wait. Or I might be screwing this up. Was that the Borg? I don't know. I don't remember.
Was that the Borg one?
It made like 11 of these things. Who knows?
Was that he was in Nemesis.
Yeah, that was a terrible movie.
Terrible movie. Okay, so we pretty much exhausted this category. You want to go? Alex, I'd like to take Windows for 300, please.
We do have some Windows stuff.
What? These surged in holiday quarter.
What happened there?
What are PC shipments, Alex?
I'll take PC shipments for 300. 300 million. Which is, I believe, was how many they shipped last year.
Whoa, you're kidding.
I think so.
No wonder Windows has such a large market share. Because every one of them shipped with Windows on it.
Yeah, it was actually kind of a problem for Apple this quarter.
Really? Apple down?
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Fell to 5th place.
In the U.S.
But remember, that's one. I don't know why. Have I been cast as the Apple apologist in this continuing
I could
saga.
tell you why.
Why?
Well, you kind of are the Apple apologist.
Because I am. But remember,
it's not so much a character, Leo, as it is a way of life.
Fifth place,
in the U.S.
is still,
excellent.
It's pretty good considering the only company that sells Apple computers.
Listen, you will find no argument from me.
So worldwide PC sales in 1 3-month period, 90 million. That's 30 million.
Yeah.
Now, how many of those were netbooks? Do we know?
No, I mean, I don't think we're going to see that kind of a breakdown that would be accurate. But obviously, netbooks were the big growth market.
And it's up 22%. I mean, that's a big jump.
Yeah, and that's actually the big deal there is that's the biggest quarterly gain. And when I say quarterly, I don't mean quarter over quarter, but I mean the same quarter from a year earlier, which is how you really do measure
year to
market
year.
Share gains.
Because you got to measure fourth quarter as a fourth quarter because it's a big quarter.
Up 22.5%. And by the way, all these numbers that I'm presenting here are an average of the IDC and Gartner numbers because these analysts measure market share in sales and all that in slightly different ways. So the numbers are slightly different. So I average them just to come up with a kind of a clean number.
So they don't always agree.
Yeah, they're a little bit off. In fact, I think in I don't remember what the actual sales numbers, but I remember that one of them had a number that was like 22.2%. The other one said 23.4%.
That's close enough.
Yeah, I mean, it was. Oh, yeah, they're not far off. So, yeah, but both of these companies, IDC and Gartner, were talking about how the rise of the netbook was the big deal, and that the PC makers were able to successfully sell these computers to consumers in the fourth quarter. But honestly, we've had netbooks now for a couple of years. I'm not really sure that there was that much of a surge in interest in that type of device per se. And I would point more toward the release of Windows 7 as being kind of a big deal. I think a lot of people
I'd agree. You're right. They were waiting. There was pent-up demand.
Yeah.
I told my listeners, from probably May on, wait.
Sure. Right.
Even though you could get a coupon for an upgrade, wait.
Yeah. I have MPD data dating back to October, and there is a huge jump. The instance that October hits,
that makes sense.
Windows 7 really takes off. So I think that's what it is.
Big winners. Which companies? Top PC makers. So, HP's number one.
Yeah,
that's not a surprise. They've been number one.
No, that hasn't changed. At some point this year, Acer surpassed Dell to be the second biggest.
That's a surprise.
PC maker. It is until you realize that Acer, of course, is the company that sells the most netbooks. And I think that speaks to the popularity of the netbook. But actually, Dell did fantastic this quarter. They had a big, again, quarterly gain, year-over-year quarterly gain, as did Acer. So they didn't change places again. But, Dell has some netbooks and netbook-like machines. But Dell, of course, is really a corporate PC company. And I think that what we're finally seeing here, when you look at these two companies, one is heavily consumer-oriented. Acer is almost solely consumer-oriented. Mm-hmm. And Dell is probably split down the middle, but they have a strong business or corporate PC business. I think what we're finally seeing is, in the tech industry, hopefully, is the beginning of this economic meltdown that we've been suffering through, for the past, almost a year and a half now, it seems. So we'll see. I mean, I say that, and of course, next quarter will be terrible. So,
right.
We'll see what happens, but who knows?
So HP, Acer, Dell dropping, but Acer and Dell both having big gains this quarter. Lenovo, Toshiba, the top five. That's pretty good. Apple would be in there if you included Apple between Lenovo and Toshiba.
Apple would. This is the top PC makers in the world, not in the United States.
Oh, okay. So Apple's U.S. only.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah, Apple never makes the list worldwide.
And in the world, and in the world numbers, that was 90 million computers, but
the United States is about 20 million.
20 million. So that just shows how important global sales are to all of this, though. That's really interesting.
Right. So as far as the Mac stuff goes, I mean, obviously this is a company that they sell over 3 million Macs a quarter now. I think that's obviously impressive, and
it's okay. I'm done apologizing.
No. I wrote an article about this today, and I think it's important to put this in perspective. I think that Apple garners a lot of the mind share, and people talk about Apple. I think people who didn't know better would assume Apple was selling more Macs than they do as a percentage of the overall PC based. But on the other hand, the Mac business is strong. There's no doubt about it. It's not like it doesn't make sense for them to continue making it. It's it's not an issue. It's just that when you look outside the United States, especially, they're just not. They're not above 4%. It's just the way it is.
No.
But anyway, yeah, I think the big news here is our netbooks in Windows 7. I think that's the way to look at this. And people tend to buy low-cost computers. And not to beat the Apple thing to death, but I think Apple in some ways, you can make an argument on either side. They're either hurting themselves or maintaining a strong brand by not even trying to compete at the low end of the market.
I don't think that this slate or whatever they announce in a couple of weeks is going to be a low-cost item. I'm sure it won't.
No, it's not going to be a netbook class device, especially not a netbook cost device. I think most people have been saying it's probably going to be in the $800 to $1,000 range, which I think makes sense when you look at the way Apple.
Well, it makes sense because people are making it up.
Right? Well, I'm sorry. Okay, let me
so we don't know. It could be $12,000 for all we know.
Right. Let me qualify that. If Apple were to release a tablet device with a 10-inch screen that was essentially an iPod Touch,
right,
but with a larger screen and perhaps with a wireless 3G connection,
right,
I think that this device would cost somewhere between $500 and $1,000.
Maybe
that's the way they tend to price things,
right?
So when people talk about $800, assuming that thing I described is the device, then yeah, that price does make sense.
It has to go somewhere between an iPhone and the lowest cost laptop, I would guess.
From a price standpoint.
Yeah.
If it's not right, and where you get into an interesting area with this device is if it's running the full version of Mac OS 10. And then I think you could make a case that maybe it's a little more expensive because it becomes a full computing device, right? It can run mainstream applications. But I don't know that something like that makes any sense because frankly, the big success that Apple has right now is not just the iPhone and iPod Touch, but also the apps that they're selling through the App Store and through iTunes. The iTunes.
It has to do apps.
Yeah.
I'm speculated out because we have Mac Break Weekly and we talk about it all the time.
I'm guessing you've beaten this thing to death.
Well, and what I've come to the conclusion is we will never know.
Yeah.
The mind of Steve is a many-splendored thing.
Right, and there will be books written about this in the future, but we already know that there have been particular keynote addresses they've given at Macworld or whatever where something was going to be announced and wasn't at the last second. One time it had something to do with a supplier who blurted out some information about a chip, and they decided, no, we're not doing this now, screw them. If this gets insane enough, this event, have they even officially booked? Oh, so they have. Okay, so this rumored event about
a rumor
device, if it even happens, could very well be about the iPhone 4.0.
We have no clue what's going to happen,
and nothing more. And
although if that happens, in the words of Mr. Burns, release the hounds because the press corps and the public will go crazy.
Apple is a hype machine, but they have failed to live up to the hype sometimes, and this would be an almost biblical.
It would be. It's their
problem.
In fact, I think the reason everybody's sure that they're going to do it is it's pretty clear that the leaks that the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal have had in the last couple of months are coming from Apple, and Apple is essentially telling these august journals.
Oh, that's up there.
That august journals.
Yeah.
That they are. That Steve is for the first time satisfied with the tablet.
Right.
I mean, they're saying it's going to come out.
This one, I think, because it doesn't say Newton on it.
What if they called it like the Fig?
Yeah, they could call it the Scully. Then he'd really love it.
Scully. Well, anyway. Well, whatever. Moving on. Big year for PCs. Big quarter for PCs. Yeah. That's good news. Yeah. Let's take a little time out because I do want to mention our friends at Citrix, the folks who do GoToMeeting, a great little product for anybody who has ever been stuck in the middle seat on a long flight, who's had to take off his or her shoes at the security line and then been patted down by a disgruntled employee of the federal government. Anybody who's spent thousands of dollars for a 1-hour business meeting is going to be interested in something that can save you money, save you time, save you wear and tear on the bodily organs. I'm talking about, especially now that they got these flesh-eating x-rays. I'm making that up. That's probably the kind of thing the FTC kind of clamps down on, is making up claims like that.
You know, they could sell it as a weight loss device.
No, I mean, I'm not talking about flesh eating, but you know, the ones that the nudists of... Did you see this news story yesterday? The nudists of America approve these new x-ray devices because everybody's naked in them.
Yeah.
It just makes us all a little closer. We
Maybe
all
too
have
close.
imperfections. And now the world can see. Not if you use GoToMeeting, because GoToMeeting lets you do more, travel less, get meetings done within the comfort and safety. You could be naked, but you don't, nobody will know because you... Boy, this ad's going down.
I forget what we're talking about here.
Because no one will know because you're using GoToMeeting. Look, here's the point. You can install it right now, and please keep your pants on. GoToMeeting.com/Windows Weekly. That's the website. When you go there, you will get a free 30-day unlimited trial of GoToMeeting, so you can have as many meetings as long as you want. It takes a minute to install. Before I'm done talking, you will have it installed. No firewall configuration, no router configuration. That's because it uses NAT traversal to be 100% secure and yet not require all that fiddly stuff that the other remote access programs do. 128-bit encrypted. There's never been an exploit with GoToMeeting, and that's something to be proud of. Now, here's the deal. You got it set up. The next time you're on a conference call and you're going, say, I'd like to show you the PowerPoint or the keynote. I'd like to show you the drawings, the slides, the spreadsheet, whatever it is that you're talking about. It's visual. You tell your client or colleague, they don't have to have anything installed, by the way. You just go to GoToMeeting.com, press join a meeting. They enter the meeting ID, and like 30 seconds later, they're seeing your screen. It's magic. You can even collaborate. You can say, okay, what do you think? You want to change those numbers? You give them control. If you're training and they don't even have the program, you've got it on your machine. You show them how to use it and say, now you try it. This is how we're working on training people on how to do some of our stuff remotely. Let me tell you, this thing is an incredible tool for business. You got to have it. We use it all the time for training, collaboration, product demos, sales presentations. $49 all the meeting. That's a month. All the meetings you want as often as you like, including phone and voice over IP. I want in the price. Phone conferencing, I should say. Try it right now. Go to meeting.com/Windows Weekly. We thank you for trying it out. It's the support of our audience that makes these advertisers happy, and it's their support that makes it possible to do all the things we do on Windows Weekly. Go to meeting.com/Windows Weekly. Item 2 in our rundown. This is the response to that lawsuit, that East Texas decision that Microsoft had infringed a patent. Microsoft pulled Word from its electronic stores and services for a minute.
And then it seemed like it, because literally in the amount of time it took me to write this article and then post it to the web, I already had people writing me telling me, actually, it's back. So it's possible by the time we have this podcast that this has just never even occurred.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. The funny thing about this really is that when they were handed this decision in August, the original decision, they claimed that they started working on a software fix so they could remove this. And when they lost their initial appeal, they came out and said, okay, well, we have until January 11th. We'll get this thing fixed, no problem. And then January 11th came, and all of a sudden it disappeared from their online
That must have scared people for a moment.
Yeah, it did, yeah. And I still get emails. It's only 3 days later as we record this, but I got an email this morning. So, well, how am I going to buy that? I need to get Office. So what's going on? As if there were some worldwide shortage of Microsoft
There's an
Word.
Office shortage.
Yeah. I mean, it's really not an emergency. I mention it only because it happened, and I'm there. People will occasionally say, "Oh, you didn't care to mention that, Paul. That's interesting."
It's funny that they did that.
Really
I guess
like Microsoft.
Why would they? I don't understand why they did that. Really,
I don't. Yeah, it's very strange.
I mean, couldn't they have just slipstreamed it?
Yep. Especially from the electronic versions, right? I mean, just fix it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
It's weird.
Crazy.
But anyway, so that's what they did. I guess it was kind of like a way to highlight.
See, jerks. Yeah.
I do that sometimes. When people complain, it's a little passive aggressive. When when people are listening to the radio show, they can't hear the callers because the radio stations don't want you to hear the full thing. They want you to listen to the radio. And so people complain about it. And I said, well, okay, here's a choice. You can see it this way without the callers, or you could see it this way. And then I turn off all the cameras and the sound.
Yeah, which one do you prefer?
No, for like a minute.
No, I'm the king of passive aggressive. Someone wrote me an email this morning and said, "Hey, here's a really interesting story you could blog about." And then they linked to someone else's story about the PC market share thing. And I said, "Yeah, this is a pretty good story. I like the one I wrote as well."
That's a little mean.
I mean, come on. I know. But you thought enough to send it to me.
Yeah.
But not enough of me to read my story. It's a weird middle ground.
Oh. Anyway, I think it probably wasn't shot across the bow to the Eastern District of the Texas Appeals Court, but who knows? Okay, so we were talking about phones. I guess we'll talk about the Nexus One in a little bit because I have some.
Well, why don't we do that one first? Actually,
you want to do that?
So,
all right.
Yeah, because one of the weird things that came out of CES was that Google had announced the phone right on the eve of CES. I think it was the day before.
Yeah, literally.
Right.
Yeah.
And they started selling it from their website, which I believe to this day is still the only way you can get the phone.
I think you're right.
Right now. T-Mobile network.
Yep.
Which is okay, not great, better than AT&T, I'm sure, but whatever. And then the weird kind of pushback started, right? Lots and lots of complaints I've seen about this thing, and now stories about how maybe Google's launch of this device hasn't gone so well. They haven't sold so many copies. The cost of ending the contract is twice as high as with any other smartphone. A lot of really weird complaints. Maybe this isn't the superphone that Google said that it was, But I spent a little bit of time with it at that Digital Experience show and then a lot more time with it on Saturday. And I have to say, and there it is here. So Leo's showing it if you're not watching on video.
It says Leo Laporte, Chief Twit on the back.
Very nice. I think this is a wonderful phone. I really like it.
Yeah, I was surprised by the backlash, and I think people just like to complain. But this is, I'm going to say it's the best phone I've ever used, and I think it beats the iPhone. Now, for Windows users, there's some negatives. For instance, there's no Outlook syncing. You have to sync.
I don't actually personally consider that one a negative. But
I'm trying to be.
No, I appreciate that. I think from the way I've described it this is the first phone I've seen where you say, yes, this is comparable to the iPhone.
Oh, in many ways superior to the iPhone. It's a faster processor. You're actually using it.
So faster?
Gigahertz Snapdragon, which is the Qualcomm chip that you're seeing, in fact, in a lot of like slates and tablets.
Sure. It's a a couple of years ago I wrote a story called "What Apple Can Do to Save the iPhone" in whatever the year was, 2008 probably. Mm-hmm. And I considered in the wake of this phone writing an article what Apple can do to fix the iPhone in 2010 because there are basic things like multitasking that it just doesn't have that are silly. There are things that are just sort of usability based, which work really well on the Android phones and also on Windows Mobile. The ability to customize the home screen, not to just have icons arrayed in some grid, but to have them around as you want them.
And widgets. I think these widgets are fantastic. I'm a big fan of widgets. I use a lot of them. I have a Pandora widget, a playlist widget, a weather widget. Google has a new news and weather widget.
Well,
these are great.
Also, but as an OS 10 guy, I think you'll appreciate this. When they introduced the iPhone originally, most of those built-in apps are essentially widgets, right, from the OS 10 dashboard.
Yeah, their dashboard, yeah.
But they run as full-screen applications on the iPhone.
Right.
And in some ways, it almost... There should be a line, I think, between simple little utility things like a weather update
and
then a full-blown weather application. And it's true that, unfortunately, in the case of the iPhone application, the one that's built in for weather is kind of lousy. It's just very basic. And it is the type of thing where it's too bad, right? This couldn't be on a home screen along with other stuff, like you see on other smartphones.
I'm down. I put a new. It comes with a 4 gig SD card. The box I got before the show began is a 16 gig micro SD. So I had to format it, and some of the data that I would normally pop up here has to be recached. So there's a little slowdown if you're watching on the video. But this is a spectacular. First of all, the OLED screen is not only high res, but the most beautiful screen I've ever seen. It's like the Zune HD.
Right.
Just gorgeous. Not great in
Yeah, it's
daylight.
beautiful.
That's the negative on OLED. But you can turn it up pretty bright, and it's usable in daylight.
What's the battery life like? That would be my one
Same
question.
as the iPhone. I get a full day on it. Yep.
Okay. But removable battery.
Removable battery.
A surprisingly thin form factor too, right?
It's about as thin, if not a little bit thinner than the iPhone.
Yeah.
It's lighter than the iPhone.
Yeah.
I think in many ways it is a more attractive phone, more usable phone. Now this one doesn't have a slide-out keyboard like the Motorola Droid, but I use the on-screen key and I'm fine. You don't really sync it. That's the thing that's kind of interesting. Like all of the Droid phones, it's over-the-air syncing. So that's the Outlook issue. You've got to get Outlook to Google Calendar, then everything will sync just fine.
But there are free tools for that.
Yeah, and I use Facebook. I use Google Calendar. Facebook ads. My contacts have everything in it. This from Facebook and from, which by the way the iPhone now does too. That's a Facebook thing, but they integrate your Facebook contacts and your Google contacts if you choose. I think in some ways the UI is actually far superior to the iPhone. It's a lot snappier. It's a better screen.
Right.
Some of the apps are missing. I think that's if you're going to pick one thing that's not there. Some of the apps are missing, but background processing is huge. For instance, I use the Listen iPod app. It's downloading in the background so that my Listen queue always has the latest podcasts on it.
Yeah, with rare exceptions, you can't really do much in the background on an iPhone.
No, this is everything's in the background. Now some people say, "Oh, multi-touch." So get this. Hardware and OS support multi-touch.
Yeah, it's just not in the browser.
It's not in the apps. Yeah. And there's
it will be.
My Google source tells me the reason it's not in the apps is because Apple asked Google they asked politely, please don't.
Really?
Yeah, please. And here's why. Apple has a patent, a very suspect patent on multi-touch, which they know, if challenged, will collapse. And what they're trying to do is avoid a challenge in the U.S. So they allow multi-touch in overseas. The Motorola Milestone, which is the Droid overseas, multi-touch, because it's built in. But Google crippled it in their apps. There are multi-touch apps, third-party apps on here that work great. There is multi-touch in here. You could tell if you press two keys on the keyboard, it works simultaneously. So there are apps that support it. It's just that the Google apps were apparently, according to what I hear, and I don't know how reliable that is, crippled at the request of Apple temporarily because Apple didn't want to face a challenge to its patent.
Sure.
That makes sense. In every respect, I put the iPhone aside. This is I'm a full-time. Oh, hey, Google Voice, and not only Google Voice, but you can have your answering machine number. You can use Google Voice for your answering machine.
Yeah.
You can make all calls via Google Voice should you choose.
I had been using Google Voice for some time, and of course, you receive a text message, and also an email message with a text transcription of those things. And I had been sort of using this for so long. You can go to the Google Voice website and play voice messages, but on the iPhone, of course, there's no Google Voice application. So if you actually want to hear the voicemail, what you have to do is call Google Voice and then hit a code and get into it. And I was on a business trip not before Vegas, and it occurred to me that I didn't actually know how to do that, and that maybe being able to access my voice messages might be a valuable bit of functionality. So I had to figure it out. It's not hard, but it would be nice if that was just integrated.
Couldn't be happier with the Nexus One. And I know people were complaining about T-Mobile. Look, I've used T-Mobile for a long time, so I'm used to it. And it probably is also geographic. Works fine in where I am in Northern California. I'm getting 3G, not HS. I don't know if it's HSDPA. It's decent speed, but I use Wi-Fi most everywhere.
Sure.
And I don't get, frankly, I don't get the dropped calls that I got with AT&T, so I'm not unhappy about it.
Oh, let me tell you something. In Vegas, and I honestly think this is AT&T's network in Vegas. It's just terrible. I would be talking to my wife especially, and the thing, it would just go click, and then she would be gone.
Yep.
And there was no indication that this was coming. There was not like it was going in and out or whatever.
No, it just clicks.
And then you would try to call her back, and it would just call fail.
Yep. It
would never ring. It would never do anything. It would just fail.
Yep.
And oh man, I was freaking out. But
I think the inflection point is going to be when this is available on Verizon.
Oh yeah,
which is this spring.
I heard a date. I don't know if this is. Can I say a date?
Why not? Don't say where you heard it. Don't
Yeah, I think it was, okay.
Qualify it as needed. It doesn't say a date on the Google page. It just says
March
spring.
23rd, I thought it was.
March 23rd sounds right. That's when spring officially begins.
Interesting.
So when they say spring, I think they're being quite literal.
It is Google.
It is. They're engineers.
They do like to do
we
that
said
kind
spring.
of thing.
We're talking the vernal equinox.
You did say spring.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is the first day of spring. I didn't know that.
Well, it's close to there. I don't know what this year. It's usually the 22nd or the 23rd.
Okay.
Isn't that interesting?
Let's see. I'm looking now.
So now I think you could say, I had said this when the Droid came out, but I think I could say it with greater authority now.
Right.
It is now down to iPhone and Android.
No, it isn't.
Uh-oh. Okay, we'll get your dissenting opinion in just a moment.
Okay.
Somebody pointed out to me, there's no point in teasing on a podcast. We can just jump ahead, you nitwit.
Wow. That hurts.
I added the nitwit because I think I deserved it. I don't think they were far wrong. But you're not going to want to jump ahead because I'm going to tell you something that is going to save your life. Well, at least save your data. I'm talking about Carbonite. Carbonite is online backup done right. I want you to go to carbonite.com and use the coupon code TWIT. And you can try it free. No credit card needed. You get 2 weeks free, mostly because I just want you to see what it's like. Here's the deal. When you install Carbonite on your machine, it immediately starts backing up the irreplaceable files to the cloud. Actually, not quite immediately. First, it encrypts it using AES 256-bit unbreakable encryption. Then, using SSL for double safety, it uploads it to the net, does it without hampering your internet connection. It's very careful, very polite, very nice about it. But it will get all that stuff up there. And now you don't have to think about it. Whenever there's a change to any of those precious files, your financial data, your photos, your music, it's whatever, it's automatically backed up to the internet. It's a great way to upgrade to Windows 7 because all you have to do is move your account to the new machine and it'll download restore all your data from the cloud. Now you need a high-speed internet connection to make this work. Absolutely. Windows, of course. But if you're listening to this show, I'm sure you have Windows. Actually, there's Carbonite for the Mac, too. Let's not say, of course. All right. If you're a Mac user, I don't know what you're doing here. You must have lost your way. But they do have it for the Macintosh.
I heard from a lot of...
No, it's funny how many Mac users listen to this. Actually. I don't know why. Maybe they like to get angry. I don't know.
I think we get the reasonable Mac users here.
Yeah. We're talking about computing.
Sure.
Carbonite is just a fantastic solution. I want you to try it right now. Absolutely free. Carbonite.com. Use the coupon code TWIT. If you decide to buy less than $5 a month, I think it's $54.95 a year, and it's unlimited. It's everything inside your computer, not your external drives, not your network drives, everything in your computer, unlimited. So you don't have to tier up. You don't have to worry about how much do I have on there. I back up. I mean, I have terabytes internally on my Windows machine because all the podcasts are in there, and that's what I do. I back them all up from the R drive to Carbonite. I don't have to worry anymore. You try it right now, and you let me know what you think. If you use the coupon code TWIT for the trial offer and then decide to buy 2 months free in addition, it is a great deal and a great product. And it is backup done right. And I know you're sophisticated. You're listening to the show. You probably back up. You have the 3-2-1 backup strategy. You've got cloud backup, local backup. You're smart. But what about mom? What about dad? Aunt Gretchen? What has she got? You know, why don't you turn them on to it? Carbonite.com. They can all use the coupon code TWIT. So you think Windows Mobile is back?
Yes.
Gosh.
I do.
Just when I thought it was safe to go into the water.
I know. Me too. I was reasonably ready to write this thing off, I guess.
Yeah, I did.
Arguably had written this thing off. Yeah. You know, a year ago in March, I wrote an article about saying goodbye to the iPhone, and I'm sure we talked about it on the podcast. The idea being that Microsoft this past year would be releasing Windows Mobile 6.5. It would be releasing the MyPhone service. It would be releasing the Windows mobile marketplace and so forth. I needed to get going on this stuff. And of course, trying to use Windows Mobile 6.1 first and then being so disappointed in the initial round of Windows Mobile 6.5 devices when those were released in October really threw me for kind of a loop. I mean, it was a tough year because, you know, I think in some ways I was trying to push myself to do this because I really do like the iPhone quite a bit. It's a great phone. And I figured by writing about it, this would spur me to move with a little more alacrity. But here we are. It's almost a year later, and I still use the iPhone. So what happened? And what happened was Windows Mobile. Windows Mobile, even as it stands right now, for the large part, is sort of lousy in many ways. And when you look at phones like the Google Android-based devices, like the Nexus One that you have or the iPhone, it really doesn't hold up.
I haven't
and you can even make an argument.
I haven't considered it in years.
Right. Sure. I hear from a lot of Windows Mobile old-timers, and of course, old-time Windows Mobile means Pocket PC, and we're talking about largely about the pre-smartphone days. The PDA type devices. The iPacs that we had, and the Dell device and all that stuff. So. I think a lot of those guys who use these devices in business, kind of moved ahead to Windows Mobile. I think a lot of people have moved on to RIM, if they want push email, especially in the business context. BlackBerries make a lot of sense. But I think the big market today is these consumer-oriented smartphones like Android and iPhone and other systems like that. And today, Windows Mobile doesn't really compete in that market very effectively. And the problem is that Windows Mobile 6.5 only goes halfway, right? They have these beautiful touch interfaces, and they really are nice, but they're really only on the Surface UI, right? You get the stuff on the lock screen, the start screen, you get the all applications page. But as you go further back into the UI, what you start to run into is user interface that's been in there for 10, 12, or more years. Some seriously old user interface.
It's
and
like
it's
Windows CE.
Literally Windows CE. And it's not finger-friendly at all. In fact, most Windows Mobile phones to this day still ship with a stylus. So you may find yourself doing some configuration thing. Maybe you want to enable Wi-Fi or some simple thing like that. And you'll find yourself in a UI where you literally have to pull this stupid little stylus out to click on an OK button or whatever, because it's so small you can't possibly push it with your finger. So everyone has their hopes set on Windows Mobile 7, but Windows Mobile 7 is late 2010 at the earliest. That's not soon enough. iPhone will be out in the fourth software version. If I understand the way Google updates their phone, they'll be on the 27th version by that time. It's just too slow. But what I discovered at CES, and I'm actually quite happy about, is that Microsoft is not standing still. They're actually going to be updating Windows Mobile over the course of time, and have in fact already shipped some of these updates. So, for example, one of the big problems with Windows Mobile right now, aside from what I just mentioned, is that it doesn't support natively support the capacitive touchscreens that are on that Android device that you have, and also on the iPhone. And the difference,
you can't have multi-touch.
Well, yes, but it's not just that. It's also kind of a friction type thing, and these non-capacitive screens that Windows Mobile devices use today are incredibly hard to use.
It's funny how we get spoiled, isn't it?
Well, I think at some point you have to agree that there's a baseline of functionality, and a capacitive screen and a touch screen device is absolutely the baseline.
Yep.
If you have to push into the glass and then hold that thing down as you move your finger up and down to scroll through a list, you're trying too hard. That device is unsuccessful. It just doesn't work. It makes no sense. So all of those devices that shipped back in October running Windows Mobile 6.5 had non-capacitive screens. Completely unacceptable. So they have shipped a software update that enables this functionality. The way that, unfortunately, because Microsoft works with the mobile industry, is it will ship on a device-by-device basis. And the first device that ships with this update is the HTC HD2. And this is a Windows Mobile phone, 800 by 480 resolution, beautiful screen. They had it at that digital experience event, for example, and it's stunning. I mean, absolutely beautiful. So
it's funny because HTC makes this Nexus One. So right. I mean, I think we all agree they're the best. There's nobody.
They do make some amazing phones, yeah. And in the world of Windows Mobile, for whatever that's worth, there are a lot of HTC devices, and they're known to be, I don't want to say hackable, but they're the type of things where you can download ROM updates and actually update the firmware. So, for example, if you have a different type of device, you wouldn't get the benefit of a capacitive screen. You'd have to have that actual screen technology. But it's possible that future Windows Mobile updates will be available on HTC devices, whereas maybe they wouldn't be available on some other devices.
Interesting. I have to say, it looks a lot like an Android phone.
Yes, it's a beautiful, beautiful phone. It really is. Yeah. Now, the second big update is there are different names for this. Some people have referred to it as Windows Mobile 6.5.3. I've heard 6.6. I think I saw 6.7 today. What it basically is, whatever they call it, is another, yet another rendition of Windows Mobile 6.5, where they've gone through the UI thoroughly and removed all of those stupid old UIs that are, a decade or more old. And what I was told at CES, and this was by more than one person, was that they wanted to ship that in 6.5, but because they had undergone this major internal reorganization, they were tasked with delivering something by the end of 2009. They were told they couldn't wait any longer than that. They were already too far behind. So Windows Mobile 6.5, as it initially shipped, represents what Microsoft could ship in that time frame, but they're not done working on it. So a second generation of 6.5 devices will start shipping in February.
This has a Snapdragon 1 gigahertz too. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
wow.
It's a beautiful thing. So we're going to start seeing other devices, other HTC devices, other devices from other companies that will incorporate both the support for capacitive screens and also this new version of Windows Mobile 6.5 that has, finger-friendly, more finger-friendly UI, if you will. So sort of the complete version of Windows Mobile 6.5. Now, of course, the other thing that's happening is in February, they're going to announce what their plans are for Windows Mobile 7. There'll be more information about that again in March at the Mix event, also in Las Vegas. So there's going to be a lot of information coming about Windows Mobile this year, but I think the important thing to say is that whereas I had kind of given up on Windows Mobile there for a bit, I now look at these devices and I think, there's a chance here that these, if you look at the HD2 especially, you see that the future is not so horrible. That this is, if you look at you're just looking at screenshots or whatever, but you can see just looking at it, this is nice, and it's possible that Windows Mobile 7, as well as 6.5 this year, will actually make sense in the consumer market as well. So, I guess I'm not claiming that it's better than the Nexus One. Or
after looking at the HTC website, I'm kind of lusting for this phone. I have to admit.
Right. So what I'm saying is it's competitive. And that's something I wouldn't have claimed a month ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's right there. And that device in particular, absolutely beautiful. I know there's a Toshiba one coming, a very similar form factor and capabilities and all that as well.
I'm bummed because I thought the world was going to get a little simpler.
I honestly, it depends on what sort of world you're in. I think, obviously, as a Microsoft guy of sorts, I mean, I tend to do a lot of stuff with Microsoft stuff, and I think a Windows Mobile phone makes a lot of sense for me. But if you're using Gmail and Google Calendar and Google Voice and all that stuff, I think the Nexus One makes a lot of sense. I think the iPhone still makes plenty of sense. I mean, it's a tremendous application phone. It's a tremendous multimedia device. It's an excellent smartphone. So I think there's a place for all this stuff. I'd throw BlackBerry in there as well for a certain segment of the population.
You know what's great is all of this comes out of cross-pollinization. I mean, some of the things that make Android better is because they said, oh, well, we should make it to work like the iPhone. The camera on the Android works just like the iPhone, except it's 5 megapixels. And I could see there's Android in this HTC HD2. Very similar in a lot of ways. And so I think that's great. That's what competition brings you.
Yeah, and it's funny, if you want to run the HTC user interfaces, you can get an Android phone. I don't know what they call it, but there's a HTC-built software UI that sits in the front with the clock and all that stuff. You can pick up a Windows Mobile phone and run a very similar UI.
Yeah.
And it's actually kind of hard to tell the difference.
It looks the same.
Know.
Yeah.
To an average user, you may have no idea.
It just shows you, how much of this is
Yeah, very interesting.
Palm was there, and Palm made some announcements at CES.
I have completely written Palm off.
Okay, I'm just checking.
And I do that reluctantly because I love the company. Their history is important.
Yeah.
The people associated with it are important to the industry and all that stuff. And I think I would even go so far as to say what they've done with the WebOS is interesting and exciting and all that. But again, as I look forward to what I sort of see as the platforms, I think that will make sense. And you can only see not very far into the future, obviously. Honestly, what I see primarily, and maybe even in this order, would be Android and iPhone, sort of tied for first place, if you will.
Right. And
I see RIM with BlackBerry, and I see Microsoft with Windows Mobile, and then I see other stuff, Symbian, Palm, whatever, and none of the other stuff, unfortunately, is going to be very interesting because they're just not volume players.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Going forward, I don't see them as volume players. I think Nokia I think their stuff is going to fall off the face of the earth unless they do something very dramatic.
It's funny because they sell more phones than anybody does, but
they're falling dramatically.
Yeah. They're not selling them in the U.S.
Technologically, they're not interesting. And not to be a jerk about it, but I mean, if you love good technology, and if you want something less worthy, I'm not saying they don't make a single phone that's not worth anything, but I mean, by and large, Symbian is, it's like the OS2 of the phone world. I mean, give it a rest.
Yeah. Well, in Mamo, I like. By the way, you're going to get some nice email on that. Just want to.
Oh, I know.
Mamo.
Wait till you see my mailbag for next week.
It's just going to be awesome.
So I don't want to give this away too much, but we did the thing about PC gaming, whether it's doomed. And of course, it's like sticking a stake into a hole and seeing what kind of snake comes flying out of there.
Yeah.
But for next week, I'm looking at.
Actually, it's more like sticking something else, a personal body part into that hole. But okay.
Well, so one of the things I'm going to bring up next week is the smartphone thing. Which smartphone makes the most sense? Today. So we did a little bit of that. But one of the other things I'll be talking about on the mailbag is home theater PCs and whether these things make sense. Does it make sense to have a PC in your living room? Because now these things are less expensive than ever. This is another area where people feel very strongly. And, I go into this with some trepidation because I know anytime you speak strongly about anything, you're going to get some pushback.
So the mailbag is at winsupersite.com, and on the left you'll see a mailbag link, and this is where Paul responds to all of the hate mail that he gets.
Well, no, this isn't all the mail or any. It's not hate mail either. What it really is topics that I discuss with individual readers that I think have relevance.
I think I want to do this. I think that's a great idea.
I don't know why I waited so long. I'm so happy I'm doing this now. I actually edit this every single day. So as the week goes on, I throw stuff in there, and then on Sunday,
you've inspired me. Yeah. This is exactly what I'll do.
It's just great because you can have an individual email conversation with someone, and that's neat. You help somebody, but hopefully, but now this is a way to. Some of these things are just universal topics.
We get the same questions, you and I. I'm sure over and over.
Right?
Why not? Somehow preserve them so that other people can read them.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you do this? Just pure personal curiosity. Do you answer your email and then say, "Oh, I should really put that in the blog," or do you say, "Look for messages in your questions and move those to the blog"? Or?
Well, again, I just started doing this 3 weeks ago, so it's going to evolve over time. But the way I've been doing it is, I get an email and I respond to it, and I can tell in the course of responding to something where, this is an interesting topic. This is something that people, might help other people. So I will take the email question and, edit it somewhat. So it's, if it's all lowercase or something, I'll publish my response. And sometimes I expand on it as well. One thing I did, I don't know if this made this look. This is from last week. It's a great typical question. You get a lot of integration questions with Microsoft technologies. Like Microsoft makes Windows Live Calendar and they make Windows Mobile. They don't make any way to sync the two.
Right.
Here we are a year later, still impossible. How do you get around that? Or Microsoft makes the Zune and they allow you to subscribe to a video and audio podcast. Microsoft makes the Xbox 360 and they have a video and audio streaming capability between the two systems, but the Xbox doesn't know anything about podcasts. How do you make the podcast show up in the Xbox 360? That's what I answered last week. So
that's great stuff.
It's So if you bought into the Microsoft world, right? There's two good examples of. I'm going full bore in Microsoft. I do Windows Live. I got Zune. I got Xbox. I got Windows PCs. They don't always work together like they should. The integration isn't always there. So hopefully there are workarounds, and there are workarounds for most of this stuff. So this is a nice place to be like, hey, look, here's the workaround. I was really proud of the Xbox Zune video podcast one, by the way.
Oh, cool. I'll have to read it.
It's a good one. That would be a good tip. But it's long, so it's not necessarily a great tip.
Better for the web, and that's the thing. That's why this makes sense, because just some things makes it. Every medium has its strength, and you should play to that medium. I bet if I do this, I'm going to have some audio answers, some video answers, and some text answers. I would suspect. I love this idea. I would love to do a couple of three a week, and hopefully you build. And I don't
know. Maybe some weeks there'll be 12 of them, and some weeks there'll be 2. I don't. Who knows? We're going to see how it goes. I'm very curious. Last week's was actually a little light because I was at CES, so I didn't have a lot of time to really go through my email and research things and so forth. I mean, I think it will vary week to week. I'm really curious to see how this thing evolves over time. The other cool thing, by the way, is it's important that people understand I don't position myself as the guy up in the ivory tower who has all the answers. I don't have all the answers. Many times people email me and say, you've been talking about this thing that's a problem and it's not a problem. And here's why. And I can say, great, well, there's something I can put in the mailbag. So people have this bit of perspective from someone else who knows the answer to something I don't.
Well, I'm thinking of doing...
I know you don't want to... Let me tell you what not to do.
Oh, good. What?
Yeah, don't open this up to like some kind of conversation on the web.
That's what I was going to do.
I wouldn't do that.
So what I was going to do is make every question and answer a single blog. I'll use it as a blog in a blog format.
Okay.
And then let people comment on it.
Yeah. See, my experience with that kind of thing has been poor. So,
to say the least.
I want this to be valuable to people. So, I mean, again, the idea isn't ask Paul pontificates. I mean, there's going to be some of that. I mean, Paul wrote it, but like I said, sometimes people will just write in. We had a tip of the week recently where someone said, hey, here's a way to have multiple shortcuts on the taskbar in Windows 7 for Explorer icons. That's one of the ones that was in the mailbag. That stuff's great. I mean, that didn't come from me.
I like everybody helping everybody. I like that. I
don't want everyone hurting everyone. That's what my blog is for.
Yeah, that's your job.
It's like I said. In fact, one of the conversations I'm going to have with work sometime very soon, I meant to do it by now, is whether or not, what's the financial picture if we just turn off commenting on the blog? Because the blog is less interesting to me because it becomes a cesspool of people talking about things that have nothing to do with the topic of the blog post.
Why don't you just moderate it? Or is that too much work?
My time is a little tight and more valuable than that, I guess. But that will be part of the conversation, which is, I talk to bloggers from ZD like Ed Bott and Mary Jo Foley, and they hire people to do that. So I'm going to go back and say, hey, look, maybe we need someone who can do that kind of thing.
Somebody suggested in a different topic, they're in the chat room, they're talking about the CES coverage. Somebody suggested that next year we pool coverage of CNET Revision 3 and TWIT, and we call it the cesspool.
Right.
I do it just because I like the name.
Yeah.
And no, I'm going to do a mailbag, and I don't know. I guess I'll do it on the blog. I could do it on the radio show site, but I think I'll do it on the blog using WordPress and its own built-in blogging features. Because
this was the thing. I'm telling you, as soon as it occurred to me that, and it was Jerry Purnell, reading his stuff.
Yeah, credit to Jerry. Yeah,
this is it.
It's a great idea. I should have done this.
I can't believe I never thought of this.
Yeah.
Why? I did have maybe I did think of it. Years ago, I want to say, maybe a decade ago, I think I did have something like this. But no, this is going to go. This is it. I'm going to be. This is a permanent fixture. I'm doing this from now on.
That's what my first book was. Gina Smith and I wrote a book called 101 Computer Answers You Need to Know. Actually, we wanted to call it How Do You Get the Dog Hair Out of the Disk Drive, but the publisher wouldn't go for that. But it was 101 questions that we had received over time and time again, and the answers.
Sure. Not coincidentally, when I do get up on stage in front of people, I'm actually not into that. I don't feel I'm very good at it. But the one thing I do think I'm good at, and the one part I actually do enjoy, is the part where I get to interact with people in a Q&A. And it has everything to do with the fact that I have no idea what's coming next. And it doesn't matter to me because I feel like I can talk about almost anything, and it's all good, and it's a good time. And this kind of Q&A stuff, the mailbag. As soon as I started doing it, I said, "Yep, this is it." This is why it took so long. I do not know.
Moving to our next topic of the day, and a good one it is. I'm sure if I could only find it. Oh, God, it's the biggest story of the week. What am I saying? It may be the biggest story of the
this could be
quarter,
the big one
of the year. I am so proud of. I don't know why, but I'm so proud of Google. I think if you're going to say do no evil,
right?
Don't be evil. Then this is how you do it.
I would say good for them. I mean, I was disappointed when they sort of bowed down to China and
should have done it sooner.
Said, in order to enter your huge market for internet users, we're going to do whatever you want, including censoring our search results. I was very disappointed in that. So this is a story that's unfolding, and as we talk about this, I should say, I think we're going to learn more as time goes forward. We're going to learn more about the other companies that were involved. We're going to learn more about the exact nature of the attacks, the people they were going after, and all that kind of stuff.
For those who haven't heard, and it's it just happened on Tuesday, so maybe you haven't. Google, in its Google blog, announced that they had been hacked badly by China, and they believe it was the Chinese government because the information first of all, they got intellectual property, including source code, but they also were looking for, it looks like, Gmail and other account information about Chinese dissidents. Furthermore, human rights activists around the world had been hacked.
Hold on, Leo. My daughter has to say goodbye to me, so now you're going to meet her.
Oh, I've never met your daughter. She's the cutest. Oh, look at her. Look at you. That's cute. What's her name?
What is your name? Mark Jr.? I can't remember. Oh, Kelly, that's right.
Mark Jr. Take it Mark's your best friend. Kelly, goodbye. She's so cute. How old is she? She's about 7, 8?
8 years old, yeah.
Oh, she's so cute. Gosh, that's a great age.
She was waving to me through the,
sweet.
The windows.
She going to France?
I believe she's going to dance. Dance class or whatever.
France. What's the difference?
Yeah.
So Google, not only that, they said that...
Off top,
I don't know. Hey, I do that all the time to you. Google said also that through phishing and other attacks, Trojan horses, that human rights activists had been hacked around the world, apparently, again, in an attempt to get information about Chinese dissidents. This pissed Google off so much that they said, that's it.
But that's the thing, you have to wonder about the specifics of this. What happened? They completely, I think something had been going on for some time, and I think they've been talking to the Chinese government, and I think this was the last straw. I think that this is something that's been boiling, and finally they said, you know what, enough. And I do feel that it was the Chinese government doing the hacking or responsible for the people doing it. And that explains their stance.
Exactly. I think that's kind of what Google, they didn't ever say that, but read between the lines. Look, if they're trying to get information about Chinese dissidents, the only people who want that information would be the Chinese government, who want to go after these guys, jail them, and so forth. And so Google says, now this, I think if I read this correctly, they didn't say, now we're going to stop filtering. They said, we are going to go to the Chinese government and say, either change the law that requires us to filter, or we will withdraw from China as a market.
Yeah.
They're not going to break the law. And this is an important distinction.
Sure.
If you do business in a nation, you have to adhere to those nations' laws. That's the way it is.
Just ask Microsoft.
That's how it is. Well, look, eBay can't sell Nazi memorabilia in Germany. Yeah. It's illegal. And that's, it's hard because of the internet is such a, kind of without borders, but let's face it. Of course you can't go into a country and violate its laws. That's the laws of the nation. You have to respect those. You don't have to do business in that country, however, if the laws are reprehensible.
The thing is, though, China talked 300 million internet users today, and that's only going up. And it's a tough market to leave behind, but obviously the cost of doing business, and it's not strictly a financial cost, but the cost of doing business there has got to be incredibly high because of the crazy form of government they have there.
Well, they're only 31% of the market, but they have a beautiful office in Beijing. Clearly, it was important to them. They own a stake in Baidu, the Chinese search engine, I believe.
Yeah. Which apparently is destroying them in the, in the market.
Yeah. But it's a moral stance. It has nothing to do with business. It's a moral stance.
It was nice to see them do the right thing because they've taken a lot of flack for the do no evil mantra that they have. And this is the right thing to do. No doubt about it.
And, I think in the long run, it's more important to their overall business. One thing people are nervous about with Google is, hey, these guys have a lot of power. They have a lot of our information. Sure. Do we trust them? And Google needs to continually, I think, make the effort to show that they are trustworthy.
On the other hand,
yes,
Google has gotten to an interesting place in their life if they can stand up to the Chinese government.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I mean, it's something to consider. I don't see a lot of people saying no to those guys.
They own, how much of our debt? How much of our paper?
If I'm not mistaken, they controlled the weather during the Olympics. I mean, this is a scary country. So,
can I say something? I love China. I was there this summer. I love the Chinese people. I adore China, and I want nothing more than freedom in China. I think if China would realize, I understand why they had to make the change. You know, look, they're coming from a feudal society 100 years ago. Okay, so they had to do some extreme things to get to where they are today. But where they are today is, I think, a country that could now finally release, end the oppression. Lighten up on the reins, be a democracy. Be a capitalist democracy, and you know what? You got to respect your citizens, and I think it's time to do that. And and I think that the only way that that's going to happen is if the nations of the world and the corporations of the world, which are in some respects more powerful than the nations of the world now, speak with one voice. And I call on Microsoft and Yahoo to do the same thing that Google did.
Oh, and by the way, how about General Motors?
Yes,
right?
everybody,
Coke and McDonald's.
Yeah,
yeah. It needs to be everybody.
There has to be a consequence to this kind of censorship. Sure. And by the way, Australia, we're looking at you too.
Right.
There has to be a consequence to this kind of censorship. And if it pulls you out of the world community, then I think people will think twice about it. China wants to play.
Yeah.
And just say, yeah, you can play. This is all we ask. I think
this is a big one. So
it's huge.
I suspect we're going to be talking about this one next week as well. I'm really curious to see what other things come out of this.
Yeah, I am too. I think it's a huge statement. And it's clearly Google completely pissed off. I mean, they've got
Yeah.
By the way, I wonder how many calls flew back and forth between the State Department. Shortly after this, Secretary of State Clinton released a statement asking the Chinese government to explain itself.
Explain
Explain
you don't
yourself.
Want that woman coming after you.
You've got some explaining to do.
Know anything about her? It's that.
But just, it shows, though, we talk about the tail wagging the dog, that Google is now, the State Department saying, "Hey, wait, what?
You mean to tell us they're censoring stuff in China?" Thank you for alerting us to that. It's unbelievable. Yeah. Well, I hope something happens, something positive, I should say.
According to Computer World, there was a Christmas Eve meeting led by Google co-founder Larry Page to assess the situation. 3 weeks later, the company had decided things were serious enough to risk walking away from the largest market of Internet users in the world.
Yeah.
That's a good article in Computer World that somebody just sent to me that has more detail than we were getting.
Well, we're going to hit a point in time this year where the number of people on the internet in China surpasses the number of people in this country in total. It's a big market.
This is just Adobe, by the way, one of the other companies involved in this widespread. That Google said, what, 9 companies?
I'm not sure.
Microsoft says we have no indication that any of our email properties have been compromised.
Which means, of course, they've been hacked completely and they have no idea. You know what I'm saying? That's the first we heard of it.
What? Wait a minute. I'll get back to you.
Our uptime is okay.
Oh, it's just stunning. I just find this amazing.
One of the side effects to this is that Gmail is now enabling HTTPS access across the board.
It's by default.
Right. This is something you used to be able to do. I've had that on, I think, from the day they enabled it.
Me too.
But normal people, this is something they wouldn't even know was an option. And if they saw it as an option, wouldn't understand what the point was. And now they're putting it on by default.
Yeah, that's great. So let's lighten things up a little bit with a visit from our good friend.
Did you see this?
I haven't seen the latest, Moss Puppet.
So I don't know if this is the latest, but this is his
predictions
for 2010.
This is Brian Hogg does this, who is a great puppeteer up in Canada.
Must be British guy?
No, he's Canadian.
Yeah,
he's in Toronto.
Same
close.
thing, Leo.
Yeah, that's right.
Just similar. Just kidding.
He does. I've been a puppet in his shows. So is Kevin Rose. Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't know if we can play it on here.
We can. Would you like to?
I think we should play that part of it.
Do you have the time code into it?
No, but right. You think I would have been prepared for this eventuality?
I believe it is. Well, I see my name in here.
You do?
Oh yeah. Let's go to that part.
I listened to mine and I stopped watching.
Fuck!
Oh, nice.
I know. I already predicted this for last year and it didn't happen. It was my only miss. But I'm still hoping it'll happen in 2010. Hey, maybe I can make it one of those self-fulfilling prophecy things. Hey, Leo, I just heard Robert Scoble call you a pansy. You should kick his ass.
So his ninth prediction is that Leo
number 2 or 3. I don't
Leo
remember.
Laporte will kill Robert Scoble. Yeah, Brian is very talented. I gotta get this. This is his puppet. It's called Moss Puppet. Did I go buy it?
Yeah.
There it is. Here we go. Number 2.
Okay, it's number 3 then.
Number 3. All right, number 3. So these are his top 10 predictions for 2010. Number 3, Paul Thurrott will get a job at Mac Life Magazine.
PC fanboy Paul Thurrott will converted like Damascus and run screaming into the arms of Steve Jobs' beautiful empire, never to look back. Mac Life Magazine will hire him, but as punishment for all the crap he's talked about Apple over the years, they'll pay him less than the janitor and fire him after spilling a pot of hot coffee on his crotch. Burn!
So I'm hoping to get in touch with Mac Life Magazine. I think they must do an April Fool's issue or something.
I don't know if are they still around?
I don't know. It would be fun.
Life. By the way, that is Brian Hogg. His website is Hogworks Studios.
So what part of Canada is he from?
Toronto area.
Okay.
And
I'd love to get on this thing.
Oh, ask and you shall receive.
I can't stand the real Walter Mossberg, but the puppet version, I think,
looks just like him.
Yeah.
It looks like a noseless Walt Mossberg.
Yeah.
He apparently,
rather than a spineless one like the real one,
apparently bit off his nose to spite his face.
Yes.
That is brilliant.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's the YouTube channel is youtube.com/Mr. Hogg. And Brian does all sorts of...
Well, I'm Walt Mosspuppet. Shut up.
His slogan is,
yeah, it's really good.
I'll stab you in the brain. I don't know, Walt. Why does everybody hate Walt Mossberg?
Because he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Okay, that would be a good reason. Okay. Hogworks.com is the place, and he's done a number of different series. He's really good. A very talented fella.
No, it's good stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Well, I might kill Scoble. I don't know. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll make a deal. You go to Mac Life Magazine. I'll kill Scoble.
You promise?
We'll make it all
we
come
had
true.
our chance. He was at the broadcast booth the other day.
Yes, he was. Robert's an old dear friend.
Oh,
he used to run my chat room.
Did I ever tell you my first Robert Scoble story?
No.
So, what year was it? It was the IE4 launch in San Francisco.
Wow.
And he was running around. He worked for Winov or one of the early webcam type companies.
Yeah. He did. Winov. Yes.
And he was running around the show with, the event with a laptop that had some humongo webcam on it, trying to get everyone to talk about IE8, or I'm sorry, IE4. And I thought to myself, who is this clown? You know, what is this guy? And of course, I later got to know him, and he's a great guy, and obviously worked at Microsoft.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and he.
Yeah. No, I actually jokingly always say to him say about him that he is the kiss of death for any technology, because if you hear that he likes something, you know it's going to die.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
By the way, mosspuppet.com has the full video and the transcript, so you can read about it. That's really good.
It's good. It's good stuff.
The only technology journalist.
I didn't realize
you
were. I'm not joking when I said I literally listened to that, stopped it, and said to my wife, "Listen, you got to come look at this." And then I kind of
forget the rest of the people in there. Who cares about them?
Sorry about that.
No, I don't care.
I'm obviously ultimately a very selfish person.
Yeah, as am I. So that's why we get along so well.
Right.
And frankly, why Walt?
If there was some way that I could push that line between us closer to you, I would.
You mean squeeze the picture a little more?
I'll get it wrong now. I got to do it right.
I think we could do that. Let me just check. I do believe we have the.
Which reminds me, by the way, the one YouTube clip that gets sent to me almost on a weekly basis to this day, and my funniest moment I think ever on this podcast was the.
Is that better? Do you like that?
Yeah, that's good. So, but remember, before you turned into this incredibly professional office that you have now, you had me coming through the laptop.
Right. Over my shoulder.
There's the one where I tried to steal your drink, and then you were pouring it into the screen as if.
I would love to find that.
Oh, it's on YouTube.
Oh,
it's
is it?
Called
Okay.
It's called Paul Thurrott Tries to Steal Leo Laporte's Coffee.
Just more fun with Skype.
It is. It's maybe the single greatest moment on this podcast, but would have made no sense to anyone if they were listening to it. And I'm sure, whenever we recorded this a year and a half ago or something,
Nobody was watching.
we're just laughing among ourselves, and people are listening, and they're thinking, "What the heck are these guys doing?" This is priceless.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Now, if you refresh the page, that disables. So
There it is.
there it is.
This is from Windows Weekly number 88.
All right. Today's beverage is shock coffee. It's 3 shots of espresso in a can. And
I could
with
use some
cream
more
and
of that
sugar,
right
and in this case, it's mocha. So 3 hits of espresso.
Little Paul's
It says
just looking
sleep
at that.
is overrated. That's their motto.
Look at Little Paul wants it.
If I can try to grab it.
Yeah, you want that? Get some shock coffee. Get it. Little Paul's trying to steal my coffee. Here, little Paul, have some. It's really good. Little baby Paul. Yeah.
I like the Little Paul on my desk. I love this shot. This is my favorite
I'm bringing
shot
that
ever.
back.
I'm bringing back Little
I
Paul.
discovered it one day because
I can bring back Little Paul. We can make Little Paul happen again.
It's too fun. It's just,
I got a Little Paul right here.
We were so young then, Leo. That's right.
Paul.
Just purred like a cat.
And for those of you listening at home, the visual jokes, the visual byplay is now concluded.
Man.
We're going to get to our picks of the week and our software of the week in just a little bit. But before we do that, a little mention from our friends at audible.com and our Audible book pick of the week. Audible is a great place to go to find audio content. I want to say audio books, and of course it is a lot of audio books. It's like, I think the last count, 70,000 books. But more than just that, I mean, there's comedy routines, there's radio shows, there's classic radio from way back when, nostalgia. There's TV. There's you can as Paul mentioned a few weeks back, you can watch some of your favorite TV shows on here. Charlie Rose, you can subscribe.
And newspapers?
Newspapers.
Well.
They'll read them to you. It's all audio, though. That's the beauty. Audible.com, audible.com. And if you go to audible.com/windows right now, you could sign up for the gold account. That'll give you a book a month. Your first one is free. Now, Paul's going to make a recommendation.
So I was a little stung last week by what you perceive to be a sort of a lackluster choice. But this week,
what was it? Just out of curiosity.
What was it? It was the latest Michael Crichton book.
Oh yeah, lackluster. Yeah. Pirates. I don't know if it's because of you. I suspect it is, because usually the books we recommend end up on the top 10 list.
Yeah,
but it is one of the top 10 downloads of the week. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what though. This one, I am actually I don't want to say passionate about because it's in the title, but this is a guy I feel very strongly about. Gary Vaynerchuk is the host of a video podcast for wine lovers, which is called Wine Library TV.
You bet.
And if you love wine or are interested in wine and want to learn more about wine, you need to subscribe to this podcast. Simple. But if you have any thoughts about getting ahead in life, I think you need to listen to this podcast, even if you can't stand wine, because this guy is absolutely fascinating. And
that's what this book is about. It's not about wine at all.
No, it's not really about wine. It's about, it's called, the book is called Crush It, Why Now is the Time to Cash In on Your Passion. And he's the right guy to write this book because he's the exact opposite of me from a personality standpoint, by which I mean he's exciting and dynamic and interesting. And,
you're basically a passionless boob.
No, but, people come up to me and they say, I want to do what you do, or I want to get involved with this industry, or I want to do this. And, what should I do? What shouldn't I do? That kind of thing. And really, if I could boil it down to the simplest thing, I would say really what this book is all about, which is that you need to really care about it. Anyone can start a blog. Anyone can start a podcast. Anyone can start a website. The trick is to keep doing it. And the reason that I keep doing what I do is because I love technology and I love this work. And, I've been doing my email newsletter since 1994, 95. I've been doing the supersite for Windows since 1998. We've been doing this podcast now for,
couple of years. Yeah.
5 years, something like that.
Yeah.
I stick with things because I should say, I don't stick with everything. I stick with the things I really care about. And you have to have a passion for it. You have to really care. And that's what this book is about. This guy is absolutely fantastic. He reads his own book, which is great. But seriously, what you're getting in the read through of the book is, him at medium speed. What you really want to do too is subscribe to his podcast at the video version and see him in action. I love the guy. He's a Jets fan, which drives me crazy as a Patriots fan. But not only does he know more about wine than anyone should, he has a way of communicating it, and you can just see again his passion really comes through. This is an incredible book by an incredible guy and someone I've never met and don't know, but I just respect so much. And this is if you were struck by how lackluster my endorsement of last week's book was, I think this one should be on the opposite end of the scale.
Paul, we tease you. I tease you mercilessly, but you've got the passion, and you are the Gary Vaynerchuk of Windows.
No, I'm really not. But
yeah, you are. No, you are. You take it from me.
I'm going to passionately argue against that.
Little Leo, you are. And
now I feel weird about the
and
yes.
I kind of like the Pirates book. So there.
Fine.
Now I've said it.
Have it your way.
Yeah. Maybe because I was
watching.
This
guy is incredible.
Yeah, no,
he's a young
agree.
guy too. I mean, he's got to be in his early 30s.
We've had him on Net at Night. Oh, I know him very well. We've had him on Net at Night. We've had him on a number of shows. He's just.
What do you think about it? So, what do you think about him?
He's the guy. But you know, his energy is so high that sometimes I go, calm down. I'm
it's a spaz, but
I'm more yours. I like your energy a little bit better.
My energy
for long term.
Do I have energy?
Or lack thereof? Let's put it that way.
I'm arguably an energy vampire.
You suck us down with you.
I really kind of suck the energy.
No, it's not true. You have a subtle energy.
Thank you. You're like my, we have a friend, Carrie, who can turn anything into a positive.
I'm your coach.
And we love her for that. And that's what she does. That's exactly how she would have said it.
No, you
have a subtle energy.
You have a dry wit.
Anyway, okay. So
and Gary is like right out there in your face. And
he is a shot out of a cannon.
If you need if you need energy, he is a triple shot. But
he's the real deal.
He's the real deal, and the essential point of this is right. In fact, my Pilates coach said, I saw Gary speak, and I want to get the book. Should I trust it? And I said, yes. The prescription in this book is absolutely right on, and you hit the nail on the head. There are times when this is going to be tough. Whatever it is you choose to do is going to be tough. It's going to be slow going. You may not get the rewards you want. But if you do something you're passionate about, it will carry you through those times, and you will succeed.
Someone from Microsoft, I was talking about Mobile World Congress, which is the next big Windows Mobile show for Microsoft. The show at which Microsoft will talk about Windows Mobile, and it will be the show at which they unveil Windows Mobile 7. And so they said, hey, you're going to be able to go to this show, which is in Barcelona. Of course, I would love to go to Barcelona.
Love Barcelona.
Problem is, the very week that this show is occurring, I'm going on vacation, and it's with another family, and we've all booked it. And, there's no way I can get out of this.
No.
So, I won't. And then he said, well, are you going to be on the type of vacation where you're not going to be anywhere near a phone or a computer or whatever? And I said, listen to me.
Crazy?
I don't have that kind of vacation. What are you talking about?
Are you nuts?
But that's what this is. It's... You don't need a vacation like that because you get up every morning excited to do your job because you're not suffering through it every day, so you can do other stuff at night that you care about. I do this 24/7. It's my life.
Exactly.
Anyway, this is what the book's about. I can't recommend this highly enough, or this guy highly enough.
Yeah, it's a good read, and it could be free. You could jumpstart your life with this one. It could be that book that you go, wow, if I wouldn't be here today if I hadn't read this book. It is. Crush it. Why now is the time to cash in on your passion. Oh, it even, I didn't notice the internal rhyme. Now is the time to cash in on your passion.
Cash it on your passion. Yeah.
That guy's subtle. You can get it for free by going to audible.com. Cash in on Audible. Audible.com/Windows. We thank them so much for their support of Windows Weekly and all our endeavors. And we invite you to give it a try. I know you're going to like it. Works on the Zune, works on the Kindle, works on the iPod, the iPhone, most devices. Now it's time for our tip of the week.
Okay. This is just sort of a high-tech New Year's resolution kind of thing. I think there are many things that need to occur within the context of your own infrastructure, technology infrastructure, the PCs and devices that you have. And there are things that we just don't do. And I think maybe now is a chance to kind of take stock as it's the beginning of the year and so forth. So the big one, of course, is just backing up. And this is something that's easy to talk about. But if you're not doing it, you need to make this happen.
Yes.
The guy I was training with at the gym, we talked about computers and all this stuff. And, somehow in this conversation before Christmas, it came out that, he is not backing up. So one of the things I got for him was just an external hard drive that does automatic backup.
Can I add the Carbonite plug though? I mean, you got to do offsite. You could use SkyDrive if you want, or Jungle Disk or something. I'm not going to
do something. I mean, I think that's
got to get offsite too, because
right, exactly. Yeah. So ideally, you're doing both local and offsite backup. And if you're doing offsite backup, I think these days we're talking about to the cloud. And it doesn't have to be everything. Locally, I actually do store backups of all of my computers, as well as system images of my computers, so that I can resuscitate them if the hard drive crashes or whatever, and get back to a last known good running state. Up in the cloud, I have my most important data, things like personal photographs. And it's important to have these things in different places, because you can have a backup that goes to another hard drive that's right next to your computer, and that's fantastic. So a hard drive fails, there you go. But if your house burns down, or your house gets robbed, or whatever, there's some natural disaster, whatever it may be, the fact that you have two copies sitting side by side is
big deal. Yeah, that can save your life. Yep.
You can do the simplest things in the world too. You can bring a backup hard drive every week to a safety deposit box.
Go back and forth. Yeah, bring it to
parents'
work.
house, a friend's house, whatever it is.
Steve Gibson mails DVDs to his mom.
There you go. And I used to do stuff like that, also with Steve Gibson's mom.
She's great. In fact, I think we got to start a new service called Steve Gibson's Mom.
Actually, Steve is so rigidly secure. I thought it would be funny if she mixed the CDs up. So if he ever needs to restore them, some of them would be mine.
I don't know, frankly, what his mom does with them. For all we know, she's mulching her garden with them. Yeah.
She has a shiny new applique on the side of her house.
Look at my new dress, Steve.
It actually blinds drivers at certain times of the day, depending on where the sun is.
But
that's a big thing. I mean, that's the big thing. We've talked a lot about simplifying, the do more with less thing, and I think that this is not a topic we can expand on too much here in this one day. But we talk about this a lot on the podcast. I think this is kind of a life hacker type of topic as well. But rather than just buy the next big gadget because it's the next big thing, I mean, really think about what it is that you need and try to minimize the amount of junk that is in your life and in your so-called home infrastructure, whatever.
Yeah.
And then a personal pet peeve of mine, why are we typing? I find it so hard not to type this too. When you type in a URL, do you type in www every time? See, I still do that, and it drives me crazy that I do that.
And I don't say it. It drives me crazy. People still say it.
I think we need to get rid of those.
It's bad enough, people. I was on a campaign in 1994 to get rid of http:// because no browser needs that.
No one needs it.
And people on TV,
www, dumb.
Yeah. Now it's time to get rid of www. There are some. Occasionally, you run into a site that needs it, which is also stupid.
Which is just poorly
bad configuration.
Yeah,
because that's easy to fix. Yeah,
I'd like to fix that one this year.
Please,
let's get rid of it.
No more www. It's the thing about W. It's really the most maligned letter, and rightly so, because W is one letter, but it's 3 syllables. W.
It's terrible.
A, B, C, D, E, W. It takes 9 syllables plus a dot, so it's 10 extra syllables.
Terrible. Yeah. Stupid.
It's like that you couldn't pick a worse letter.
Wait.
I wouldn't mind if it was AAA.com.
Sure.
But it's WWW.
I think we just need to say goodbye. I think it's time.
Time to say goodbye to W.
Move along.
Yeah, in fact, the whole letter. Let's get rid of the whole letter. The Germans had the right idea. The Romans didn't have a W. They had V.
That's true.
They had V. That's all you need.
There you go.
Of course, then you pronounce, things like victory, wictory.
Yeah.
That's a little weird.
There are people like that.
Software. And by the way, can we call it 2010? Can we just agree?
You can sit. By the way, I've stumbled over that at least 3 times today.
Yes.
I'm trying.
Minion
I'm gonna get there.
Minion
we have a whole
Fogarty
decade to make it happen.
Of Grammar Girl fame says 2010 too. Everybody agrees. 2010. I do it all the time. I say 2000.
Did you notice what did Moss Puppet say?
What did he say?
He said 2010.
That's because he said fool.
Okay. All right.
It's 2010. There's no 1000.
We're trying.
working on it. Software pick of the week.
This one is for Internet Explorer users. There's a new ad block, really nice one. This is I don't know if you can see the name there. I'm going to stumble over this one, but Mainuddin Ahmad Jonas provided me with this.
You did that perfectly.
Okay, it's called Simply, a simple ad block for IE, and it works as advertised. Blocks all kinds of ads and so forth. I noticed the one thing it does miss, interestingly, is if you go to Gmail. And it has those contextual ads on the side. Those are still there. But it does a great job of removing the annoying stuff from the web, the flashy stuff and the big banners and all that. So I think people that are using Firefox and now Chrome have an excellent collection of different ad blockers to choose from. This is a great one for Internet Explorer if you're using that browser.
I think it's the same one, isn't it? Maybe not, because it's called ad block.
I think it's based on the same back end, but it is a different ad blocker. Yeah.
So are my dreams and fantasies.
Based on the same back end?
Yes. Paul Thurrott, it has been a great treat and privilege, not to mention a pleasure, to speak to the lowest energy journalist in all of technology.
I'm surprised I'm still awake.
It's subtle energy.
I slip in. Do I actually slip in and out of a coma?
I believe so. There have been times we've just paused for a moment while you nap.
Actually, my mouth is just open.
Paul pioneered something called micro naps.
Yeah.
Just a second or two, but it's enough to refresh.
Sleep fast.
Blip naps.
Yeah.
Paul Thurrott is the editor-in-chief of the super site for Windows, winsupersite.com. You must go there every day and see what's new, because that's how you keep up on this wacky world of Windows. winsupersite.com. Also, if you use Windows 7 and you don't have the book, Windows 7 Secrets from Wiley & Sons.
I do have a book.
Well, I have it on my Kindle and elsewhere.
I have to figure out when the next giveaway is going to be too.
Ooh, you talked about last week you were going to do Everything Must Go, but you haven't decided yet.
Probably going to be after the February vacation. So I'm thinking maybe it could be before then. We'll see. I don't want to say. Sometime in February.
It's good enough for me. Good enough for me. He's waiting to see what Apple announces in January.
That's right. If you see me selling a bunch of iPhone and iPod type things,
if he sells all of his computers, then Apple has a home run.
Then this podcast is going to take a sudden turn.
Yes, we're calling it Paul's Mac Life.
Yeah. Paul 2.0.
Paul 2.0. Paul Thurrott, thank you so much. We'll see you next time on Windows Weekly.